crazy. I already got thumbs up, but there's nobody in the chat. Hey, what's good? Just give me a thumbs up. Let me know y'all can hear me. Yes and yes. Way. A Bluetooth. Alright. Have a second one in there. Alright. Appreciate y'all joining. As y'all seen, the title of this one is called Look at Ancient Maps. Base, Detroit, strong. We in the building. Yes, sir. Great Lakes. It's called Look at Ancient Maps. Reason why I titled it as such is we talk a lot about ancient America and our history here and treaties and rights, but how many of us have actually taken the time to sit down and actually look at what the landmass was like before there was a United States of America? So if you go into the description, you will see a link coming from the New York Public Library. Okay, so hit that link, and when you hit that link, it's going to take you to a page where you will see different years for different. First, you'll see United States, then you'll see North America, you'll see Canada, you'll see Mexico, and then they have years laying out the different maps they have for those different periods. That's starting from the 15th century going up. So check those links out. Take the time, sit down, and look at your landmass. Now, I was trying to find a magnifying glass. I'm a little bit disappointed because what my plan was to do was to pull out my magnifying glass, right? And we can go through this map. And this is going to be the same map you're going to find in them links of ancient America. Okay? You can see it. Septentrionalis. Alright. This is in the British Museum. Couldn't find my damn magnifying glass, so we can't really go in how I wanted to go in here in person. Let me see. Let me see if the video gets something. I mean, granted, the same thing I'm trying to show you, you're going to be able to see in the links. Start with the 16. Well, you know, start where you want to start, but gradually, this particular timeline for this map, you're going to see it in the 1639, like 1631 to 1639 and up, period. So check that out, all right? And this is called the Blue Wall Map, okay? See if I can read it. William Hansen Blue, the founder of the Great Map Publishing House of Blue, was one of the first men in the world to produce maps showing the two hemispheres, approximately AD 1605. Apart from maps and atlases of normal size, the publishing house also issued very large wall maps, which today are particularly non-existent, because they were usually pinned to walls and in the course rotted away or were destroyed. Fortunately, Johannes Blue, the son of the founder, combined some of these maps into two enormous atlases between the years 1647 and 1658. One is in the British Museum and the other in the Berlin Museum, and they are known as the largest books in the world. The British Museum's atlas has rollers on its underside to enable it to be moved. This map, taken from an original size 4 feet 6 inches by 3 feet 6 inches, is signed by the founder of the Blue House in the form of a dedication addressed to the papal ambassador in Venice. It was probably a
gift and almost certainly for a mercenary reason. It appears to have been given in 1665, at which time the founder had already been dead for 27 years. So it is believed that his son Johannes copied his handwriting. The map is enriched with a border of 11 portraits across the top. Pope Innocent the 11th is in the center, while the horsemen depict all the reigning monarchs of the day, including Charles II of Spain, Johannes III of Poland, Louis the 14th of France, and the Sultan of Turkey, with whom the West was at the time at war. It is believed that the border was painted in Venice, but it is not known whether the Blue family or the papal ambassador was responsible. This particular map is a unique example of bleu, and considered the finest in existence.
All right. So these are two maps combined. One is in the British Museum, and the other is in the Berlin Museum. All right. Facts. So pop open those links so you can have a look at your maps. And the things you're going to find, and I can't make them big here, but I done looked at this long enough. Of course, you can see this strip here being California. But when you go into the inner areas here, you're going to find Granada, okay? You're going to find Spain, or España, okay? Or Hispania, which would be Spain, which would be proof that Spain was over here in the Americas. And then over here, at the top of South America, what you will find is the viceroyalty of Spain. This is what this area is called. All right, but look into those maps. You see what I'm saying? No cap. And then you got the East Coast here. You'll see Florida stretching all the way out here. You know what I'm saying? Just have a look at your landmass, man. Have a look. Have a look at your shit. All right. Now, let me get back to where I need to be at. Turn this thing around. All right. And just so y'all know, this is the barbershop. This is the barbershop. Y'all can see I have the flag back here representing my state. Okay. This is my ecclesiastical body politic. Okay. Which is operating with the United States of America. Alright? And that's how we're supposed to be moving. Create your own and then move with your own. It's a birthright. Let's see what's going on. Alright. Also to the links, if you feel it in you to want to make a donation, the links to the PayPal and the Cash App are also in the description, as well as the link to the book. You need to get your hands on this, because once we start going through these courses, you don't want to fall behind. This right here is my life manual. I'm sharing it with you so you can manifest your heaven on earth, which is what we all trying to do at the end of the day. No bullshit, no trying to scam. You know what I'm saying? Just real hard, honest work. I have to put on my scientist cap, go through experimentation, go through trial and error, see what works, see what don't work, see what processes are really true, see what processes is cap. This is work, man. So trust me, you will get your investment back tenfold. All right? And no, this book is not $10,000. Okay? It's not even $500. It's $120. Okay? And like I said, the link to get it is in the description. So, with that being said, I want you to keep those links for the map. Bookmark that shit, save it. All right? Keep it close by so you can, how can I say this? So when we're talking about our land and we're going past the 1600s, you can still have a mental picture of what we're talking about. So you're not just lost in like, okay, I know it's real, I know it existed, but I never seen it. You know what I'm saying? It's different when you can actually look at it like, oh, there's Al-Andalus right there. Oh, there's Granada right there. Oh, there's this right there. It's a different game. Everyone likes to call those receipts. So I'm giving you some receipts, okay? And the source once again is coming out of the New York Public Library, right? This ain't no weird place. This is uh well and good certified area where you can go delve into information. Okay? So we're gonna get into expatriation and citizenship of the United States. We're gonna go through some cases. Okay? This is page 65 of the book. Page 65. So if you already have the book in your possession, feel free to pop that thing open and follow along. Come on the journey. It's gonna be a fun one. Alright? If you got a nice computer with 2 screens, or you got your desktop and your laptop, pop open the link with the maps on your laptop or your desktop, and then, you know what I'm saying, follow through on the other. So here we go. Page 65. Now that we have a look at our landmass, right? Keep looking. Keep looking. Look at how your land looked. Look at what territories and kingdoms were set up before there was the United States of America in existence. Life didn't start with the United States. Okay, so if we make the claim that we are the descendants of the original peoples of North, South, Central America, then we should be able to have receipts that show and prove that. If I'm speaking of such things, then I should be able to pull up a map that shows you old cities, old kingdoms, and old territories that were established before there was the United States of America, before there was even an Atlantic so-called slave trade. Okay? So you got to keep all this in mind. You got to be cerebral with it. You can't just keep one part here and one part there. History and law go hand in hand. So if you don't know the history, you're not going to be able to enforce the law. Okay? Because the law is going to be based on the history. The history is the receipts, and not the reconstructed history, the actual history. Because we weren't showing these maps in school. All right? I ain't never seen no map like that until I was a grown-ass man. And when I say grown-ass man, I mean in my 30s. Okay? That ain't cool. I should have been exposed to that at a very young age, so I can have a full grasp of who I am being indigenous. When will that's a pretty good question by the real Blackula. Appreciate the question. When will the black man take back the planet? When the black man stops acting and pretending to be a black man. The planet's already ours. We the ones pretending to be something we not. So when we are ready to stop pretending to be black, and when we are ready to stop pretending to be U.S. citizens, the world is ours. It's light work. All you need is a good idea and people who are willing to put in the work. Manifestation is inevitable after that. Once you hit that type of mentality, it's easy to manifest. Problem is, we still running around here thinking we black. So I just want you to know, those cities and those kingdoms and those maps, when you start looking in those maps, those weren't black people running those. Granada wasn't being run by black people. You know what I'm saying? Spain wasn't being run by black people. It was being run by indigenous people. Essentially all dark skinned. I like to call them Moors because they was all dark skinned. Although they all had their different set and different tribe. I respect that. But at the end of the day, everybody was copper colored Moors. And I say Moor because I don't know everybody's individual tribe. You see, I'm using it how it's supposed to be used. Moors are indigenous. Then the second question, what tribe are you from? What clan are you from? What people are you from? Genealogy, baby. Get into it. So, great question, by the way. Thank you. Thank you, Blackula. All right. Cases cited from expatriation and citizenship of the United States. So, in the book, I'm starting from page 65. If you actually pull up expatriation and citizenship of the United States, I have the page in the actual document where the same court case can be cited. Okay? So in expatriation and citizenship, that'll be page 44. Okay? The 14th Amendment of the Constitution, in the declaration that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside, contemplates two sources of citizenship, and two only: birth and naturalization. Citizenship by naturalization can only be acquired by naturalization under the authority and in the forms of law. But citizenship by birth is established by the mere fact of birth under the circumstances defined in the Constitution. Every person born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof becomes at once a citizen of the United States and needs no naturalization. This is why none of us needed a green card. And anyone else who's born here does not have a green card. A person born out of the jurisdiction of the United States can only become a citizen by being naturalized, either by treaty, as in the case of the annexation of foreign territory, or by authority of Congress, exercised either by declaring certain classes of persons to be citizens, as in the enactments conferring citizenship upon foreign-born children of citizens, or by enabling foreigners individually to become citizens by proceedings in the judicial tribunals. That'll be the whole Naturalization Act process thing. As in the ordinary provisions of the Naturalization Act. From the very earliest decisions, the courts have recognized two citizenships. Oh, and if questions arise from what I'm reading, put them in the chat. From the very earliest decisions, the courts have recognized two citizenships, perfectly distinct and from some viewpoints wholly independent one of the other. Indeed, the Constitution itself recognized and provided for such citizenship. Article 3, Section 2, as does also the language of the 14th Amendment. So I want to stop right there, and because this is going to emphasize what myself and other righteous Moors have been saying, which is the two types of citizenships we're dealing with here. 14th Amendment, and then you have citizenship conferred by the Constitution. When I say conferred by the Constitution, that doesn't mean that there weren't instruments or treaties or other covenants or other ancient agreements that came before, which the Constitution in itself is adopted from. The Constitution isn't a parent, it's a child. Let's make that very clear. Every constitution in existence comes from, or I should say, is birthed from a treaty. Period. Wherever you find a constitution, you will find a treaty that came before it, which that constitution was adopted, which it adopted those agreements from the treaty to make a, to make a more updated agreement. That's across the board. Okay? So now, what have I been talking about all the time? Hey, go do the name change through the courts. Exercise your religious freedoms. Why? Because now you're invoking your First Amendment right. What is your First Amendment rights dealing with? It's dealing with your rights to freedom, your religious freedoms, your rights to peacefully assemble, okay? And then your rights to freedom of speech, to talk. not realizing that the word jurisdiction, juris, means right. Juris means right or law. Diction, diction, like a dictionary. Diction means words. You ever heard somebody give somebody a compliment? Your diction is amazing. You have great diction. What they're saying is you speak very well. Okay? So, jurisdiction is the right to speak on a matter. So if you don't have your First Amendment right, there is no jurisdiction. What jurisdiction? The only jurisdiction you could have is what someone else creates for you. You can't create your own jurisdiction. You don't have no right to speak. You don't have a right to speak. So with that being said, going through Article 3 courts, which is what? Consular courts. Why do I emphasize Article 3 courts? Because through Article 3 court, you can bring in treaty discussions. You can't talk treaty discussions in a regular court. Huh? Tell me something I don't know. Last time I checked through my research, you cannot bring up treaty discussions in a regular court. They have a venue for that, and that venue is called Article 3 courts. This is why Brother Koo speaks about Article 3 courts. Because if we go and talk about enforcing the treaty, then we're going to have to do that through an Article 3 court. What's an Article 3 court? An Article 3 court is constitutional. It deals with diversity of citizenship. Right? Am I right or am I wrong? Does it not deal with consular courts? So if I'm enforcing a treaty and I have my own consular courts, then I can enforce my treaty rights through Article 3. How do I do that? I have to invoke my religious freedoms. Because in my First Amendment, I have the right to freedom of speech, I have the right to peacefully assemble, and I also have the right to my religious freedoms. By doing that, I'm exercising something that is only able to be exercised by a people. Whether that's a people of the United States, meaning they're recognized as people, but they're a citizen. And then there's people who are people, or I should say nationals, but not citizens. Does that make sense? Because they have allegiance to their own state, or their own indigenous community, or their own tribe. If you don't have one, start one. And this is what Suno University is about. It's about showing everyone how to be able to start your own community. Because last time I checked, everybody got family. Everybody got mom. Everybody got dad. May have a partner. May have some close friends in your circle. May have some cousins, some brothers, sisters. May even have some children. So you have a community. Don't say you don't have a community. Don't dare say you don't have a community. When in the very Bible, that's considered a religious document for this particular society, right? And if we know how to use it, we can turn that thing into a gun and point it in the other direction. So with the Bible, it says 2 or more come in my name, I am present. So if 2 or more come in my name, that's a community. I'm trying to get you guys to understand. It's simple. So now, recognizing 2 forms of citizenship. One coming through Article 3. Okay? If you're one of the people, whether you're a citizen or not, and you want to exercise your religious freedoms, you want to roll through Article 3. And if you're a national but not a citizen, you're a descendant of the original peoples here, you have history prior to the United States of America, you have treaties prior to the Constitution of the United States of America, then you want to use Article 3 to bring those topics of discussion up. Because we're dealing with jurisdiction. My right to speak on a matter. My right to speak on a matter. Jurisdiction. I did a video years ago called Jurisdiction, Jurisdiction, Jurisdiction. Because for a long time, when I first came into studies, I had the perception that jurisdiction dealt with being under like someone's control, like, oh, dominance. And it's like, that's not really what it's about. The essence and the source of jurisdiction comes from the ability to speak on a matter. For example, they have you in the system classified still as a 14th Amendment citizen. If you have any issues dealing with the court, okay, when you present, you're going to be presenting as a 14th Amendment citizen, which means that you're not coming in as one of the people, coming in through Article 3. So therefore, when they press the person does not have anyone who is in control. So that office is vacant. It's not being occupied. That means I could do whatever the fuck. But somebody still gotta take the liability. Who's gonna be responsible for this? If you don't have your First Amendment right, you will never have your own jurisdiction. You will never be able to create your own jurisdiction if you don't have your basic First Amendment right. Basic. You need to open up Article 3 of the Constitution and read what situations it deals with. It's very vast. Citizens of the same state, citizens of different states, citizens of the same state under different land grants from different... They cover a lot of things, man. Dealing with specific situations. If I get into a situation with somebody from, let's say, New York, and I'm domiciling out here, that would be citizens of a different state. If I'm a member of my own indigenous community and I have an issue with a resident of Washington State out here, that would be what? Citizens of a different state. I'm not a resident. I'm not a citizen. I'm a national. Look, continue reading. Check out. Any questions? Let's see here. I appreciate you, Brother Seth. Thank you for ordering the book, man. I know it will serve you well. Yes. Everybody been talking about my baldness. That's right. Yeah. Sometimes it's good for a fresh start. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. I could tell you what, though, it's nice to feel that breeze against my scalp. See what else we got before I proceed forward. Islam. Brother Michael L. Smith, second, Islam. Brother Raz de Saint Bay, Islam. What's going on with you? Alright, so let's continue. Two types of citizenship now. Article 3, 14th Amendment. They make it plain. And then here's a C. Slaughterhouse cases, 1872, 16 Wall, 3673. All right, that's the court case you can look up to verify what's being stated here. Okay? This point, therefore, needs little consideration beyond naming decisions in which the matter was more or less directly adjudicated or referred to. It may be said, however, that certainly as early as 1795, the fact that a man might be a citizen of both of a state and of the United States was recognized by the Supreme Court of the United States in Talbot versus Jensen, 1795, 3 Dow, 133, and C. Gassius versus Ballon, 1832, 6 Peters, 759. The principle has received a rather careful statement in the case of United States versus Crookshank, 1785, 92 US, 52, 542, 550. Those are all receipts. It seems thoroughly well, listen. And if you're reading along, really grasp what you're about to read here. It seems thoroughly well recognized that from these two citizenships, there arise two sets of rights. One set being within the protection of the federal government under the 14th Amendment, and the other left to regulation by the state. Did you read that one more time? I'm gonna read it one more time. If it's not clear, say something. It seems thoroughly well recognized that from these two citizenships, there arise two sets of rights. One set being within the protection of the federal government under the 14th Amendment, and the other left to the state. What state is up to you? Because if you're not a resident of a state, then what state are you a national of? I should dab on that. All right. Okay. I had to do that one time. All right. Let's see here. And also the early case of Corfield versus Coriel, 1823, 4 Wash, Washington, CC 371 and 380, where the rights of citizens of the United States are comprehensively but briefly sketched. I'll read that out to you again. And also the early case of Corfield versus Coriel, 1823, 4 Wash. Here, let me just put it up on the screen so you can pause it. And then go check that out for yourself. Okay? Make sure I got it right. In the case of Corfield versus Coriel. Okay? I'm gonna leave this up here for like 10 seconds. Okay? So if you want to find out where the rights of citizens of the United States are comprehensively but briefly sketched, go check that out. Receipts, 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 receipts. Okay. Now we're continuing on to page 66. The people of the United States, resident within any state, are subject to two governments, one state and the other national. But there need be no conflict between the two. The powers which one possesses, the other does not. They are established for different purposes and have separate jurisdictions. Separate topics and subjects they can speak on. Together they make one whole and furnish the people of the United States with a complete government, ample for the protection of all their rights, at home and abroad. True, it may sometimes happen that a person is amenable to both jurisdictions for one and the same act. So it depends. This does not, however, necessarily imply that the two governments possess powers in common or bring them into conflict with each other. It is the natural consequence of a citizenship which allows allegiance to two sovereignties and claims protection from both. The citizen cannot complain because he has voluntarily. Let me rewind that back. We on page 66, y'all. Second paragraph. The citizen cannot complain because he has voluntarily submitted himself to such a form of government. Remember, we all consent, right? So you consent to the type of government you want to operate here. You want to establish your own heaven and be able to operate from your own jurisdiction in communication with the national government, known as the United States of America. That's cool. Because it said it right here, Supreme Court case law. 2 types of citizenship. State, federal. State, federal. State, federal. How can I bring that into light for you? Oh, I got it. I'll be right back. Give me a second. And pop some questions in. All right. I'm back. Lucy, I'm home. Hey, thank you for the likes. Hey, man, if you like this video, share it out. Share it to the Facebook. Share it to Instagram. Share it. Get this out because this information is vital. All right? This ain't information that needs to be held back. Everyone needs to know about this so they can be a better whatever they want to be. Better citizen, better national, better human being, a better, you know what I'm saying? A better look for society. What up? What up? So Blackula asked another good question. Do I see a one world government formed in the near future? If so, will it benefit us indigenous peoples of the planet? No, I do not see a one world government because that is unlikely because we all have different personalities and characteristics. So everything being the same is boring. That's also a form of hell. That'll never work. Not in the long run. Now, government where there are numerous indigenous jurisdictions in communication with each other to make some grand scale moves on the planet, yeah, we could do that. But there's no way in the world we're ever going to be able to subject different indigenous communities and jurisdictions all underneath the same rules. Haven't we been trying to do that forever? Has that worked out? No. You still have Hebrew Israelites. You still have Nuwapians. You still have this. You still have that. I don't want to disrespect other forms of my culture, which I still hold attachment to. I still show respect. This is why I never bash other schools of thought, because that, in essence, would be me bashing myself. I'm not into that shit. I love myself. Why would I bash myself? Never that. Today I could wear a fez, tomorrow I could wear a yarmulke, next day I could wear a turban. You know what I'm saying? Next day after that I could wear a do-rag. Next day after that, I could wear a fitted. You know what I'm saying? The headdress don't make the man, but we have different schools of thought, right? We have the nations of the earth and God, 5%ers. You know what I'm saying? Nation of Islam. Um, these are all part of our history. So even whether we agree with it or not, as far as how they function or what they stand for, that's still a representation. That's still a live receipt of our ancestors doing work. And honestly, everyone was just doing the best that they can in the time period. We are the third and fourth generation. We got this. We got this. Okay? All right, let me get to the next question. This is from Ricky Fontaine. Should we establish the 9-8 trust and then put the church under it? Brother Ricky. Brother Ricky. So the 9-8 the 9-8 trust should be the church. Your church should be your foreign ecclesiastical body politic. Does that make sense? Your tribe should be your foreign ecclesiastical body politic. This is why we're going forward to establish a 9-8 number, right? It's for our ecclesiastical body politic. So yes, to answer your question. So here's a good question. My sister Lakey Ross. I'm sorry, let me not assume. Maybe brother or sister Lakey Ross. What do you do if it's not a consular court? How do we keep all of our affairs in the consular court? You keep all your affairs in the consular court by exercising your religious freedoms. It don't matter what venue you're in. The consular court or Article 3 court is not an actual physical building. Okay? The consular court or Article 3 court takes shape and form upon you invoking your religious freedoms through you speaking. Remember? Jurisdiction. Speak. Talk. I can also invoke jurisdiction by writing. This is why the First Amendment is so important. Freedom of speech, whether that's verbal or that's written. And if we're talking about written, now we can start delving into the whole rabbit hole of contracts. See what I'm saying? The First Amendment is very important. People bypass it like it's not nothing. If you didn't have the First Amendment, nigga, we couldn't speak on treaties. We couldn't speak on ancient covenants. We couldn't speak on trust law. We couldn't speak on rights. We couldn't speak on discriminations. We could not even sue for damages because there's no freedom of speech. Freedom of speech. People who are free are not revoked in their speech. If you're not free, then you're not free to speak. Does that make sense? If you're free, then you're free to speak. If you're not free to speak, you're not free. You're not underneath your own jurisdiction. You have no right to speak on matters that concern you. You're not in control. You're not of the age of majority. Somebody still needs to hold your hand and walk you through. Okay? Very good questions, by the way. So in order to always keep your issues in consular court, everything should start off with religion. When I did my name change petition, what's the reason for the name change petition? Religious reasons. Then I go forward and give my explanation in harmony with the ancient traditions and customs of my indigenous ancestors, Exodus 20:12, which says, honor thy mother and thy father, that thy days on the earth land may be long and plentiful, that the Lord thy God hath given thee. My Lord and my God is my mother and my father, because they gave me life. Okay? Let's not make it spooky, y'all. It's very simple. This is why we can access different levels of religious doctrine from different places and use it how we want to construct it. We got the mental capacity for that shit. We brilliant. You ain't know? But now, back to what I left originally for. Let me just make sure I answered all questions. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm just tapping, catching up on all the questions. Yeah, you go and update the social. So, Brother Rob Bay, the Social Security, despite the counter order name change, the Social Security number still follows. Yes, this is why once you do the change, then it's time to go and update that Social Security number. So you can show that you're, for one of the people, because you have a mother and a father that made you. Okay? Also, you want to update that so you can show that your relationship with the person is that you're the owner or the beneficiary or the grantor. You get my drift? And then the Form 56 is when you're ready to fire the agents of the United States. This process is in my book, exactly how I'm talking about it. In order. Then you fire the agents of the United States and you make your trust the fiduciary, the new fiduciary for that straw. You see how that works? You bring it right underneath your trust. Legally, okay, this is from Rob A now. If your paperwork precedes you and you take care of certain things, it will be difficult for so-called law enforcement to harm you. Of course it would be difficult. If your shit's already in order, it's hard for them to get you into the courtroom unless you really doing some wild out shit that's injuring people and damaging someone's property. Unless you're actually doing that, what the law gonna do with you? Let you live? Because if they mess with you and there's no probable cause, there's consequences. People can lose their jobs and people have families. See, now we can live in the real world. The Matrix is fake. This is the real world. In the Matrix, shit can happen to people with no consequences. In the real world, there's consequences for your actions, good or bad. And that's for everybody. No one is not subject, or no one is exempt from that. Not a cop, not nobody. Not the DA, not the U.S. Marshal, not the U.S. military, not the Navy, not the Coast Guard, not anyone in the medical field, nobody. Nobody. And I mean that. Nobody. Nobody. Alright, cool. Cool, Brother Rob. Glad you got it. Alright, cool. So now, getting back to it. On page 66, I'm going to go back, right? The citizen cannot complain because he has voluntarily submitted himself to such a form of government. He owes allegiance to the two departments, so to speak, and within their respective spheres must pay the penalties which each exacts from disobedience to its laws. In return, he can demand protection from each within its own jurisdiction. So the citizen is stuck between a rock and a hard place because if they don't like the state they're dealing with, they're still subject to the laws of that state as long as they remain a resident of that state. And they're still subject to federal jurisdiction because they are a U.S. citizen. You see how that works? So the citizen can't complain because you voluntarily chose that. Now, the two forms of government that don't conflict with one another, right? One being state and one being national. And just understand, another name for national can be federal, can be central. Central government, the federal government, the national government. It's talking about the United States of America. Okay? In General Congress assembled. The organic United States of America. Alright. I didn't need that. Here we go. What is an example of state and federal? Okay? I'm not a citizen. I am a national, though. And mind y'all, brother hit me up on the email inquiring about ID cards for Quunel University. I will be producing some new ones. Um, I will let you know when they're ready to be processed and shipped out. Because yes, all members of Quunel University do need to have some form of indigenous identification or something that lets the community know, if you need to present that you are part of an indigenous community. So like such, this is what it would look like when you're dealing from a state and a federal perspective. This is my state. This is my state. Dab on that. This is my state. This is federal. Okay? My state is in communication with the federal. I'm not a citizen. I'm a national of this state. And I have the right to protections abroad. When I leave this landmass, I have rights to protection abroad. Okay? As an American. When I come back home, this is my state. So when I travel to different states of the United States, like for example, the state of Washington, or the state of Nevada, or the state of New York, or the state of Florida, I would not be considered a resident. So I'm not subject or bound to the jurisdiction of the state of Washington. I'm outside of that jurisdiction. The state of Washington applies to residents of the state of Washington who are U.S. citizens. Does that make sense? If it don't, let me know. I'll come at it another way. I'm trying to be as very plain and clear as I can. State, federal. State, federal. I'm not a resident of the state of Washington. Okay? I'm a national of Quunel Shi'amaru Republic. Slide you in there, homie. Already. All right. Okay? I always have my state and my federal identification on me at all times. State and federal. Always. Always on me. At all times. All times. All times. Okay? Let's continue now. So now this is coming from page 48 of Patriation and Citizenship. In the first place, the courts have held that the law presumes that all persons who live among us are citizens until the contrary is shown. Let me read that one more time. In the first place, the courts have held that the law presumes that all persons who live among us are citizens until the contrary is shown. Consequently, where a party was known to be born here, although it is not shown that his father, who was foreign born, was not an alien, and although during the party's infancy his father moved out of the country, still the party was considered a citizen. The same principle was applied under the Treaty of Peace in connection with persons who were shown to be domiciled in America before the close of the Revolution, with a continuous residence afterwards. Moore versus Wilson, 1857, 10 Yerger 406. And in Molyneux versus Seymour, Fanning and Co., 1860, 30 GA 440, 441, Lumpkin J. Said. Let me stop there before I read Lumpkin J's quote. Let me read this piece again, because I think maybe it over here. Hold on. Pull up this Supreme Court case right here. State versus Beekmo. See that? Where we at here? Here we go. See that? State versus Beekmo. She Almaru. 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 No, we're not Arna. That is the Aboriginal Republic of North America, run by Dr. Ali Muhammad. Respect. That's one of those positive mores you should be paying attention to. Ali Muhammad, Asir Dukateers, Sabir Bey. That's tough. That's real tough. As you can see, my circle's pretty small. I only listen to Moors who have passports, because that means they're living what they're speaking. I can only bear to hear what you got to say if you live in what you're speaking, because then I can learn from that for real, and apply some real things to my life and improve my life for real. So shout out to Ali Muhammad, shout out to Sabir Bey, shout out to Asir Dukateers, all who came before me doing this work way before I. Thank you. Just so you know your works, all right? Your works. So you can see what it produces. We doing the work. We're trying to raise up fallen humanity. I'm a creation of that. The next person is a creation of my good works. It just keeps on paying it forward. That's how we build out here. That's how we build out here. Okay. Damn it. Nope, it's on page 66. Yeah. Okay. So the assumption is we're all presumed to be citizens, right? Now, from the state versus Beekmo, 1843-6, Black F. Let me put this back up again so you can get the full joint. From here, state, and then just work your way down. Work your way down. Okay. And then down to the next line. Okay. You should be able to pause that and get you a good feel. All right. So in State versus Beekmo, 1843, Black F, 6 Black, F488, Lister versus Wright, 1842, 2 Hill, NY 320. Consequently, where a party was born was known to be born here, although it is not shown that his father, who was foreign born, was not an alien. How are you foreign born but not an alien? How are you foreign born but not an alien? Was not an alien, and although during the party's infancy his father moved out of the country, still the party was considered a citizen. Still. Campbell versus Wallace, 1841, 12 NH 362. The same principle was applied under the Treaty of Peace in connection with persons who were shown to be domiciled in America before the close of the Revolution, with a continuous residence afterwards. Continuing. Damn, we was here before the Revolution? Duh. Not in a demeaning way, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, trying to trigger that aha moment. Okay? So, I'm going to read it again. The same principle was applied under the Treaty of Peace in connection with persons who were shown to be domiciled in America before the close of the Revolution, with a continuous residence afterwards. Now, Moore versus Wilson, 857, 10 Yerger, 406, and in Molyneux versus Seymour, Fanning and Co., 1860, 30 GA, 440, 441. Lumpkin J. said, all persons who are found within the limits of government whether their residence be permanent or temporary, are to be deemed so far citizens or subjects thereof, as that the right or jurisdiction, civil or criminal, will attach to such persons. Moreover, one alleging the alienage of a party must prove it. State versus Haynes, 1880, 54 LA 169. Another principle has, however, been laid down by the cases that where the original status of a party in an action is shown, this is presumed to continue if there be no evidence of the denationalization or naturalization. In Hornstein versus Linham, 1879, 100 U.S. 483, 484, Mr. Justice Swain expressed this principle thus: there is no proof that he denationalized himself or ceased to be a citizen and subject of Switzerland. His original is therefore to be presumed to have continued. See for an elaborate discussion of the rights of aliens as affected by treaties. Rixner's Succession, 1896. Okay? Under our present statutes, the party having been born in the United States was a citizen by birth, and unless it was shown that he had at the time of coming of age elected to consider himself a subject or citizen of the country to which his father had migrated, he would still be considered an American citizen. So it's based on you declaring, are you a citizen or are you not? Nobody can do it for you. I'm reading Supreme Court case laws. This ain't my opinions. This is Supreme Court case laws. Okay? This is Supreme Court case laws coming out of expatriation and citizenship of the United States. These are not my opinions. These are not my feelings. These are the facts of the matter. And if the facts don't matter to you, I feel sorry. Because freedom and facts are like this. Freedom and facts are like this. All right. Here we go. Oh, and let's continue on to page 67. Okay. This is the Cherokee Nation versus Georgia, 1831, 5 PET. Is the Cherokee Nation a foreign state? In the sense in which that term is used in the Constitution, the counsel for the plaintiffs have maintained the affirmative of this proposition with great earnestness and ability, so much of the argument as was intended to prove the character of the Cherokees as a state, as a distinct political society, separated from others, capable of managing its own affairs and governing itself, has, in the opinion of a majority of the judges, been completely successful. They have been uniformly treated as a state from the settlement of our country. The numerous treaties made with them by the United States recognize them as a people capable of maintaining the relations of peace and war, of being responsible in their political character for any violation of their engagements, or for any aggression committed on the citizens of the United States by any individual or their community. Ain't that fresh out the Treaty of Peace and Friendship? No more shall injure a citizen of the United States, and vice versa, no citizen of the United States shall injure no more. And if so such thing happens, then the laws of the country shall apply to which the occurrence took place. Okay. Laws have been enacted in the spirit of these treaties. The acts of our government plainly recognize the Cherokee Nation as a state, and the courts are bound by those acts. A question of much more difficulty remains. Do the Cherokees constitute a foreign state in the sense of the Constitution? The Council have shown conclusively that they are not a state of the Union. They are not a state of the Union. Is Sunashiyama Republic a state of the Union? No. No. We're not a state of the Union. Sunashiyama Republic isn't one of the so-called states of the United States of America. Is it? No, it's not. It's a private, ecclesiastical, Moorish society. It's an indigenous community, in which all members are indigenous to America. All right. The acts of our government plainly recognize the Cherokee Nation as a state, and the courts are bound by those acts. A question of much more difficulty remains. Do the Cherokees constitute a foreign state in the sense of the Constitution? The Council have shown conclusively that they are not a state of the Union and have insisted that individually they are aliens, not owing allegiance to the United States. An aggregate of aliens composing a state must, they say, be a foreign state. Each individual being foreign, the whole must be foreign. Don't get lost in that, though, because you can't be foreign. You're going to see why. You ever seen grandma and grandpa be foreign to their grandchildren? That's interesting. The question came before Chief Justice Marshall a second time in Worcester versus Georgia, 1832, 6 Peters 515, in which it was to be decided whether or not the plaintiff in error, Worcester, a missionary laboring among the Cherokee Indians with the consent of the tribe and with the consent of the United States, might be lawfully removed from the Cherokee country by Georgia authorities acting under a Georgia law. In holding that such an individual could not be so removed, the learned Chief Justice again defined the status of the Indian tribes in substantially the same terms. Since this time, the question has been frequently before other courts, and they have adopted and acted upon this view. See particularly Ex parte Kenyon, 1878, 5 Dill, 385, Ex parte Kennels, 1879, 5 Dill, 304. And see also the Kansas Indians, 1866, 5 Wall, 737. New York Indians, ID 761, and Dred Scott versus Sanford, 1856. 19 Howe, 403, Elk versus Wilkins, 1884, 112 U.S. 94. It ain't just the Dred Scott case, y'all. There's plenty other cases too. Already. Now, following out to its logical conclusion, they're ruling that the Indian nations were not for purposes of jurisdiction under the federal Constitution. They're not under, they have a treaty with the federal Constitution. The courts have uniformly and consistently held that for purposes of jurisdiction, they were not aliens either. How can a grandma and a grandfather be alien to their grandchildren? So I have to correct myself from my past videos where I made, and I think I made a 3-video series where I was speaking about Moors are aliens. In the sense we are alien, based on how we move with the society. We don't move as citizens. We move as nationals. Okay? So our whole operation is different from how a citizen moves. All right? So there's no way we could be aliens because we're the grandmothers and grandfathers of the United States of America. How can a grandmother and a grandfather be alien to their grandchildren? How? How? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't click. How? Of course they couldn't be aliens. You're the grandmothers and grandfathers of the shit. Of course you can't be aliens. You're not citizens either, though. You get my drift? Now, we're on to page 68. Where, however, the Indian has forsaken his tribal relations and adopted civilized ways, it has been said he is a citizen for purposes of jurisdiction. I'm going to say that one again. Where, however, the Indian has forsaken his tribal relations, it's important to maintain your relations, y'all. And if those relations don't exist, it's good to establish your own and then establish those relations with your own community. That counts. Don't think it don't count. It count. It count. You could do some things out here. It count. It count. Once again, the link to the book is in the description. The link to the maps is in the description. The links to make donations or patronages to the Cashapp and PayPal is in the descriptions. Thank you very kindly. Let us continue. All right. Where, however, the Indian has forsaken his tribal relations and adopted civilized ways, it has been said he is a citizen for purposes of jurisdiction. So do not separate from your ways. Let me call you back. Okay. Here we go. Ex parte Kenyan Supra and C. Hatch versus Ferguson, 1893, 57 Fed 959. Moreover, it seems that whatever his habits of life, he will be regarded as a person within the meaning of the Habeas Corpus Act. United States versus Crook, 1879, 5 Dill 453. In Re Sakua, 1886, 31 Fed 327. Don't forsake your tribal relations, y'all. Because then when it comes to jurisdiction, you are a citizen. Okay. Of course, I'm not going to go through all these cases. I'm going through the ones that are sufficient for this particular lesson. But of course, you can order the book and go through these yourself. Okay. Here we go. This is a good one. Yep. All right. So you can find this particular case in page 62 of Expatriation and Citizenship of the United States. In Pendleton versus State, right here. In Pendleton versus State, and then rock out with it. Now they're talking about us in particular, free Negroes. Although Indians are still talking about us too. They're talking about us all the way across the board. But here we go. In Pendleton versus State, 1846, 6 Arc 509, the plaintiff had been indicted under a local statute which prohibited the immigration and settlement of free Negroes or free persons of color into this state. The plaintiff pleaded the second section of the 4th article of the Constitution of the United States, which provides that citizens of one state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens of the several states. After quoting the remarks of the court, in Amy versus Smith, supra, the judge continued. If citizens in a full and constitutional sense, why were they not permitted to participate in its formation? They certainly were not. Do you see why it was important for them to paint the picture of us being blacks or people of or persons of color? Because persons of color had nothing to do with the formation of the United States of America or the construction of the Constitution. Blacks and people of color had nothing to do with that. Nothing. Okay? After quoting the remarks of the court in Amy versus Smith, supra, the judge continued. If citizens in a full and constitutional sense, why were they not permitted to participate in its formation? But it's funny because the Iroquois Confederation wasn't it? House Congressional Resolution 331. Shh, don't tell nobody. They certainly were not. Not as black people. No. The Constitution was the work of the white race. Really? Well, yeah, when you find out what free white people are. Yeah. It wasn't founded by black people or people of color. The white race. The race that consists of people. Understanding what white mean. Don't forget. A person having origins in any of the original people of Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. Don't forget. Don't forget. The government for which it provides, and of which it is the fundamental law, is in their hands and under their control. And it could not have been intended to place a different race of people in all things upon terms of equality with themselves. Indeed, if such had been the desire, its utter impracticability is too evident to admit of doubt. The two races, differing as they do in complexion, habits, conformation, and intellectual endowments, could not nor ever will live together upon terms of social or political equality. This is the hard truth. So claim your status. A higher than human power has so ordered it, and a greater than human agency must change the decree. Those who framed the Constitution were aware of this, and hence their intention to exclude them meaning Negroes, free Negroes, and people of color, because there's no such people, to exclude them as citizens within the meaning of the clause to which we have referred. So why is it important that for us to not be citizens? Because we were here before there was a United States of America. So that means we already had a form of government, we already had a form of nationality, status, citizenship, grade. We had all that laid out already. That's what gave birth to the United States of America. Based on how we was moving. And it's continuing on. We can't be citizens of something we made. We are the nationals. We are the grandmothers and grandfathers of it. We are in the world, but we are not of the world. In the world, but not of the world. We are dealing with the United States of America, but we're not in the United States of America. We're not within, we're without. Which we have a treaty of amity and commerce, which we can conduct and communicate from one state to another. Government to government relations. All right, y'all. About to read one last case law. I'm gonna wrap this up here. In Cooper versus Warsham, right at the top. In Cooper versus Warsham, right? The plaintiff applied under a writ of habeas corpus for discharge from imprisonment in pursuance to an ordinance of the city of Savannah, which Citizenship of the United States Expatriation, etc., 65 provided that each free person of color removing to the city should pay the sum of $100 or in default thereof should be arrested and confined in the city jail until such sum was paid. The court held that the ordinance was repugnant to the laws of the state and so void, but began its opinion by declaring that free persons of color have never been recognized here as citizens. They are not entitled to bear arms, vote for members of the legislature, or to hold any civil office. They have always been considered as in a state of pupillage and have been regarded as our wards of the state. And for that very reason, we should be extremely careful to guard and protect all the rights secured to them by our municipal regulations, not by the Constitution. You see the difference? You see the difference? Free persons of color have never been recognized here as citizens. They are not entitled to bear arms. Being a citizen is a detriment to you. If your ancestor is one of the original peoples of North, South, and Central America, you being a U.S. citizen is a detriment to you. Point blank, period. It's a detriment. It's a handicap. It's not an aid. It's not a help. It's holding you back. Free your mind. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. The U.S. citizen keeps us in a box. It's time to step out the box. Okay. And for that very reason, let me start from top. Free persons of color have never been recognized here as citizens. They are not entitled to bear arms, vote for members of the legislature, or to hold any civil office. They have always been considered as in a state of pupillage and been regarded as our wards. And for that very reason, we should be extremely careful to guard and protect all the rights secured to them by our municipal regulations. They have no political rights, but they have personal rights, one of which is personal liberty. The reporter has added to this case the following note. By a joint resolution of the legislature of Georgia in 1842, it was unanimously resolved that free Negroes are not citizens of the United States. Let me read that one more time. By a joint resolution of the legislature of Georgia in 1842, it was unanimous resolved that free Negroes are not citizens of the United States. Well, damn, we not citizens. What are we? We're the nationals. We're the grandmothers and grandfathers of the United States. Do you not know your place or position? You're not the U.S. citizen. You're the grandmother and grandfather of the U.S. citizen. Tribal affiliations, tribal relations, tribal connection, tribal attachment to your culture. here we go. This will be the final one, y'all, and I'll close it out with a couple of questions, and that's it. Page 66 from Expatriation to Citizenship. In Shaw versus Brown, 1858, 35 Miss 246 315. The court seems to have faced squarely the condition in which decisions holding that free persons who were not citizens had forced the courts, he said. But Negroes born in the United States and free by the laws of the state in which they reside are in a different condition from aliens. They are natives and not aliens. Though not citizens of the state in which they reside, within the meaning of the Constitution of the United States, they are inhabitants and subjects of the state, owing allegiance to it and entitled to protection by its laws and those of the United States. But remember, we just read from the last page, from the last Supreme Court case law, that people of color can only be protected by municipal regulation. Ah, you caught that, huh? You caught that, right? Okay. Let's get back to where we at then. They are inhabitants and subjects of the state, owing allegiance to it and entitled to protection by its laws and those of the and entitled to protection by its laws and those of the United States. More like municipal regulation. Okay? For by the common law and the law of nations, all persons born within the dominion of the sovereign are his natural born subjects and owe allegiance to him and obedience to the laws and are entitled to protection. It is true that these persons are a subordinate and inferior class of beings and have no rights but such as those who hold the power and the government might choose to grant them. Dred Scott versus Sanford, 19 How 405. But they derive their rights from the states in which they are domiciled. State. And just to bring it home, this is a perfect one to end on. I speak about this case all the time. It's one of my top ones. Here we go. You can find this one on page 76 of Expatriation and Citizenship. All right? In the case of Jones versus McMasters, 1857, 20 How 8. Mr. Justice Nelson, in delivering the opinion of the court in a case involving the question of citizenship, said the plaintiff was born under the dominion of the Mexican Republic in what afterwards became the state of Texas, and has lived under it ever since her birth, she having been removed by her parents into the territory of Mexico proper before the declaration of Texan independence, and beyond all question, therefore, is a citizen of that government, owing it allegiance, which has never been interrupted or changed. There has been no act of hers or of anyone competent to represent her, or to determine her election, indicating an intention to throw off this allegiance and to attach herself to the new sovereignty of Texas. So ain't that what we're trying to do? We're trying to remain true to the sovereignty of the ancient empire and not get caught up in these modern day United States. But for this person dealing in this court case, it was the state of Texas, which was previously known as the Dominion of Mexico. Okay? Having been born and having always lived under the old government, the burden rested upon the defendants who claimed that she was a citizen of the new one to establish the fact of the change of her allegiance. The facts set up in the plea prove the contrary. According to these, the plaintiff was 19 years old when this suit was commenced, and between 22 and 23 years when the plea was put into the jurisdiction, if she was competent to make an election while a minor, but after she had arrived at mature years, as to the government to which she would owe allegiance, the presumption upon the facts is that she has made it in favor of the one under which she has lived since her birth, Mexico, even though she's domiciling or functioning with the state of Texas. If she was incompetent to make it during her minority, then the allegiance due at her birth continued and existed at the time of the commencement of the suit. What that case says that at the end of the day, when it comes to citizenship, you have the choice. Are you a citizen or not? And then from there, you need to comprehend, if you're not going to be a citizen, what are the other options that are available to me in which I can move and not be affected in my private capacity, dealing with my private indigenous community, right? My body politic, my state. So, let's see what the questions is dealing with. That. And this is why I said, look up those old maps, because that court case is in direct correlation. What were these territories called before what they're called today? If you're able to make a connection to that, okay, then this is how we can undo the spell that we were brought into, and then reverse everything and put everything back in the proper standing. The same way how her parents were able to save her from becoming a resident of the state of Texas, we can save ourselves and reverse the shit and put ourselves back in the original standing. This is why I'm reading those Supreme Court case laws, so you can see and get an understanding of how the law is interpreted. Okay? So let's see what questions is up here, and then I will close out. Oh. Thank you, Brother Tyreek. Charles C. Mann, book New Revelation Before Columbus, Chapter 10, Great Law of Peace. Brother Tyreek, could you let me know what it says exactly? I'm a little bit late on catching this one. All right then, family. I think that's it for the evening. Appreciate the love and support. Feel free to patronage, donate. If you wish to get the book, everything you need is in the description box. All the links and all of that. So have fun, get in tune, and get acclimated with your land and what it looked like before the United States of America. Okay? It's your brother Cool. Deuces.